and who gets over acne first?
Well, men get it second, and I think that women get over it faster.
Yeah, women mature quicker, and so you guys shoot up in size in like elementary, junior high school. Girls get taller and bigger than boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then moving through high school and junior high, boys start to get taller and bigger. And so girls are diminishing as they leave high school, and boys are really hitting their sexual peak right as they're leaving.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's the sex hormone response with Addison's and Cushing's. What about Graves' disease and Hashimoto's?
That has to do with thyroid, right?
Yeah. So which one's associated with which side?
Graves is with hyper.
Yep. Graves is on top.
Okay. And then hypo is Hashimoto's.
Yeah, Hashimoto's, right? And we already know that if we have, so we know what does the hypothalamus do?
It secretes. Well, the hypothalamus is the center.
Oh, I'm sorry, Addison. I told you the wrong thing. It's thyroid. Hashimoto's and Graves has to do with the thyroid.
That's what I was saying.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Right?
Did you say it right? I said it wrong. I'm sorry.
No, I think you said it right. I can't remember though.
Okay, I can look at the video. We can do a video call in, but I think I said it wrong.
That's okay. Either way.
So it's thyroid. So remember, what does the thyroid do?
The thyroid is metabolism.
Metabolism based. So if hyperthyroidism is a Graves' disease, what do we got going on with hyperthyroidism?
So like signs and symptoms, you would be tired, overweight.
Yep, high blood pressure, overweight.
High blood pressure.
Yep. Okay, then hypothyroidism, what's going to happen?
You'd be cold. You would be basically the opposites. You'd be skinnier.
Yes. Okay, it's time for you to work.
I know. I should go.
Okay, I'll see you later.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Yep, bye-bye. 8:30, I'll be there. How you doing, sir?
Good, you?
Good.
Jeez. I know the whole library now.
It is a big library.
Yeah.
Okay, I just make this note. There you go. Okay. This is I can turn the lights off and I can have it like a PowerPoint. We won't do that right now. My computer's updating Excel and stuff for some reason.
Cool.
Okay, so I don't know where you're at with this, but I want to show you something that we kind of made this. We were doing brain mapping yesterday where you actually just write down a concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so starting with just the overall flow of this system, and I want to make the connection that there is nothing new in this section. It's stuff that we've already learned, electrolytes. You know, that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I just want to go over that. That may help you, but if it doesn't, it'll be a good review. So what are the 6 glands that we talk about in the system?
So hypothalamus, pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, and adrenals.
Adrenals and the ugly organ in the middle.
Pancreas?
Yeah, pancreas, which is also a GI organ, right?
Right.
Okay, so we've got 2 head, 2 neck, 2 torso. So 2, 2, and 2. That was something that somebody noticed in the notes that talked about it.
Okay.
But it's a way to remember them.
Yeah.
2 head, 2 neck, 2. Okay, so what's the first one we talked about?
That's a hypothalamus.
Yeah, hypothalamus. And what if you could think of like one word, and my handwriting's horrible, so I apologize. If you could think of one word that the hypothalamus did, what would be its function?
Control? Or
Control center, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like that's the decision making,
Yeah.
right? What's going to happen? So control center, right?
Right.
Excellent. And you're James, right?
Yeah.
Okay, James. And if you want to jump in and take I may have you jump up, take the pin, or you know what I'm saying, or we may play a game, or we'll break it up. We can only do this for so long before I just go crazy.
Sure.
before I go nuts. I mean, I'm a good studier, but even I go, I gotta get a drink. Okay, it's crazy. Okay, so what's the next one?
Next gland?
Yeah, pituitary, right? And again, if you could think of one small, simple phrase that describes what the pituitary did, what would you describe it as?
Release or?
So in the notes, it calls it the master gland, but I like to think of it as a distribution center. If this is the headquarters of a company, this is the distribution center for those products, right?
So it affects all the other glands.
Yeah, the adrenal gland is going to call for a different thing than the pancreas. The pancreas is going to call different than the parathyroid and thyroid, right? And it's the pituitary gland that makes the decision about what gets what.
Right.
Hey, oxytocin is going to go to the ovaries in a woman to assist and block uterine contraction. But on the other side, on the anterior side, she's going to get prolactin going to her mammary glands to tell her to produce breast milk. And so it's the pituitary gland. Those commands come into the hypothalamus. Then the hypothalamus sends those signals to the pituitary, and the pituitary discriminates and says, hey, this is what I need to send where and how I'm going to do it. So this guy's and so this is the distribution center.
Right.
So if you think like a company, right? Distribution center sends out those commands or sends raw materials to factories that do a job. Okay, so these two factories, so we had two things here. What were they?
Thyroid and parathyroid.
Okay, so what is the thyroid responsible for? Like in one kind of phrase thing.
T cells?
T and B's, T3 and T3 and T4, right? But those are specifically responsible for metabolism.
Yeah.
Higher or lowers metabolic functions, so body temperature, heart rate, blood pressure. Those are the kinds of things that it's going to control.
Okay.
And again, that's going to work with other systems, kidneys and other things to get that to happen. And those T3 and T4 hormones do that. Okay, so what does parathyroid do?
That one I'm not too sure right now.
Okay, so parathyroid is this. Let me see if I can draw a chemical.
And it's the one that has the four little calcium.
Calcium levels. So this is the first place that we can talk about. Well, in our electrolyte section in Unit 2, we talked a lot about calcium. So what does calcium do in the body? What's the major organ system that the calcium responds to and acts on?
Muscle.
Muscle, but specifically one muscle. So skeletal muscle.
Skeletal muscle.
Yep, skeletal muscle. Yep, there we go. So skeletal muscle. So parathyroidism controls calcium. So if I have hyperparathyroidism,
you have too much calcium.
I'm going to be calling for calcium, right?
Right.
I'm going to be calling for more than what I currently have. Okay. So there's a starting point and an end user. If the body is calling for calcium, where does it go to get it?
Well,
there's my starting point, and my end user of the calcium is going to be who?
The skeletal muscle.
And we didn't have to look at our notes at all.
Right.
We're already starting to figure out, hey, we already know some stuff, right? So the bones are going to be called for calcium. Bam. The skeletal muscle is the end user. So if I'm calling for calcium from the bones, what's going to happen to my bones?
Weak bones, maybe?
Weak bones. There's a sign and symptom of parathyroidism.
Okay.
Hyperparathyroidism. So weak bones. Okay, what's one of the responses to elevated calcium we're going to do to skeletal muscle?
Weak muscle.
Weak muscle. There we go. See how we're doing this without even looking at the notes?
Sweet, yeah.
Just knowing basically what's going on and calling upon this knowledge in those previous lectures. Okay, thyroid, hyperthyroidism, right? We have a hyperthyroidism, hyper elevated. If I have a hyperthyroidism, what's that going to do to my metabolism?
Increase it.
It's going to drive it up. So what would I expect my body temperature to be like? High body temperature. Body temp, my hand on my hand. And then what would I expect my heart rate to be like?
High.
So if body temperature is high, how does the body elevate body temperature? Blood pressure, moving blood.
Right. Would muscle contractions be in that or no?
So we're covering muscle contractions here, right?
Okay.
So maybe there's a relationship between hyperthyroidism and parathyroid function, right? Because we're going to want muscle contraction. So calling for an increase in blood pressure might drive us to hypothyroidism, because too much calcium causes the muscles to be weak. You can't generate heat using the muscles if you have weak muscles.
Right.
So it might drive us to hypoparathyroidism. And that's the connection. Does that make sense?
So it's flipped. So hyperthyroidism is going to be hypoparathyroidism.
It could drive hypoparathyroidism because we're going to want to have muscle contractions to make that body heat go up. Okay, what's going to happen to body weight here? If you're calling for more energy to keep the body's temperature and the blood pressure and heart rate up, where's it's going to do? It's going to draw energy to do that. You're going to have a lower body weight because it's going to be calling for energy.
Using up your fat.
It's going to be using up fat stores and carbohydrates and protein to do that. So we're going to have low body weight. Okay, my handwriting's going to shit. Sorry.
Okay.
Low body weight. There you go.
Low BW.
So guess what? We're already starting to see what we have to study. We probably have to look at the hypothalamus because we don't have any more stuff. We know it's the control center, but we probably want to look at that one. Pituitary gland. We know it's the distribution center, but we might want to take some time to look at that before the test. But these guys on the surface look difficult, but really they're not. Right. As soon as we know what they generally do, we already kind of understand how they work. Okay, parathyroidism. We know what it's calcium control. Too much, too little is going to have these responses on the starting point of the end user. Now, hypoparathyroidism is going to do something different in one way. Okay, we know that parathyroidism is calling for calcium. Here, we're not calling for calcium anymore. So the end user, what's going to happen to the skeletal muscles with hypothyroidism?
Oh, the getting weaker there is going to get bigger. Or
yeah, tetany is the word.
More active.
You're going to have that. It's going to contract. I'm not going to want to release. Okay. Well, the beginning here is when we're calling for calcium. Now we have bones. We're not calling for calcium anymore. The bones can only take up so much calcium. So now I've got free calcium in my system that has no place to go. Where's it going to go? Excess calcium is going to go where?
Urine. Yeah.
Urine. Yeah. And if I have too much, what's going to happen? What can happen if too much calcium collects in the kidneys? There's a disease for that.
Cystitis.
Yeah, cystitis, right? Or renal caniculitis. We're going to get kidney stones. So hypothyroidism has one disease process that hyper doesn't. There's a response in the kidney because excess calcium is in the blood, and the only place for it to go is downstream. Because the bones can't take it up fast enough because it's bone remodeling, right? That takes time. We have excess. We have hypokalemia or hyperkalemia in the blood right now. It's only got one place that it can go quickly. That's the urine, and it could become kidney stones.
Sweet.
See, we had this. Is this awesome?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem though daunting. What was that?
So you're
not learning. You're just reviewing previous things, and you're associating. So now they have like Hashimoto's, Graves, Addison's, Cushing's. There's diseases, right, with names, and it's just identifying where those are now. So like Hashimoto's and Graves have to do with thyroid. So Graves is hyperthyroidism, and Hashimoto's is hypothyroidism. Okay. But you now know what hypothyroidism does.
Right. So
now you just say, oh, Graves is hyper, and then like Hashimoto's is hypo, and you already know what it does because it's metabolitic, right? It's going to do metabolism. Okay. So Addison's and Cushing's we talked about in class, that has to do with some stuff down here. So what are the two glands down there?
Those what? Pancreas and adrenals.
Okay, so Addison's and Cushing's have to do with this. Addison's is hypo something, Cushing's is hyper something. And there's two systems in here. There's an adrenergic and a cholinergic system, and we just have to determine where those are at. I will tell you they're cholinergic, so they're parasympathetic. Right. So Addison's and Cushing's don't really deal with the adrenergic system. They're parasympathetic or cholinergic system diseases. So it's decreased levels of cortisol is Addison's, elevated levels of cortisol is in Cushing's, and then what that actually means. And we'll talk about it. We're going to go through it. But see what I'm saying now? It's not so daunting. Now you just, it's okay. Adrenal glands has an adrenergic system and a cholinergic system. Cushing's and Addison's are in the cholinergic side, and Addison's is low cortisol, and then Cushing's is elevated levels of cortisol, stress hormone that we can't get rid of. Okay, so the last one?
Pancreas?
Yeah, pancreas is down here. And we know something about pancreas. What does the pancreas do? What's its function?
Digestive enzymes and insulin.
There you go. And then also glycogen. Remember, there's glycogen stored. And that's so, remember, bookends. Insulin is the uptake of glucose, and glycogen is the beginner of glyconeogenesis, when the body needs glucose for energy. So, and it's easy, right? Because insulin to one side of it, and glycogen is the other side. So here I'm trying to take up insulin in a rest and digest situation with insulin, and my fight or flight response is I need that energy. The liver's going to secrete glucogen to create blood sugar to make it so I can fight the enemy or outrun the bear or whatever the stress response is. Not very hard now. See how?
Okay.
It's like so excited. It's like, see,
yeah.
oh, 2 drops from heaven. See, we had this discussion yesterday, and we literally gone through the whole material, all this material. And
where'd you guys meet up yesterday?
We went up at 1 o'clock at the library up in Rose Park.
Gotcha.
And then we're not going to meet there anymore. We're probably going to start coming up here on Saturdays because the parking's free on Saturday up here as well. And I can schedule this room. We're up there. We're having a really difficult time getting a group study room out there. Okay. It's getting.
Yeah, I was over here yesterday.
Yeah. Well, if you're up here too, like it just makes more sense. Okay. So let's clean this off, and we're going to go to the adrenal section. Okay. So adrenal has 2 sides. What are they?
Exocrine and endocrine.
So, well, the adrenal glands have 2 sides.
No, adrenal. No.
There's adrenergic and cholinergic, and one is sympathetic and one's parasympathetic. Another way to say it is fight or flight, rest and digest. So when I say any one of those, so I pushed Tanner the other day with this too. So if I say parasympathetic, the 2 responses that you should give back are cholinergic and rest and digest, because those are the equal terms that. So pick one of the terms and throw it at me, and let me see if I can give the other 2 back. So pick one of those 6 terms, pull one out of the air, and I'll see if I can give you the 2 that match it in response.
So I'd say cholinergic.
Cholinergic, I'd say rest and digest, and parasympathetic. Okay. Because those are the equal terms that in a test question, they can use any one of those terms to say that one system. Adrenal system dealing with parasympathetic, rest and digest, or cholinergic. Those all mean the same thing. And so in a test situation, in an NCLEX situation, they can use any one of those words, and you have to mentally know that's where they're going. That's where the test is taking you, the question. So we'll go through those now.
And adrenergic.
Adrenergic would be sympathetic, and it would be fight or flight. So if I say fight or flight, what would you say in response? The 2 responses.
Sympathetic or cholinergic.
Adrenergic. Yeah, adrenergic. Okay, and this is the way I remember adrenergic with fight or flight. To antagonize someone is to piss them off. They want to fight. Cholinergic doesn't have that, like, it's like cholinergic, like colon, like culinary food. Like it's culinary when you want to eat. So I say cholinergic is eating, and adrenergic is you're pissing me off and I want to kick your face.
Add aggression.
Yeah, add aggression. Yeah. Okay, so we good?
Yeah.
So is this good review for you? Is this helping you?
Yeah, it's really good.
Because I've never worked with you, James, and you've never really worked with me. So I want to make sure that everything that we do here is productive. And if it's not, just say, hey, Chris, I know this, and we can move on, or you can test me.
I like that.
I'm just throwing it down like, hey, because this is still helping you. And my horrible handwriting, okay. I'm just gonna turn this biatch around. Sorry. Okay. I'm recording this too, by the way.
Okay.
It's like my computer's recording. It's taking a picture of the wall, but I should turn my computer, but I'm just too damn lazy. Sorry. Okay. So let's talk specifically now. We're drilling down. So brain map into adrenal glands. Okay. We talked about there were 2 systems. There are 2 branches. Pick one. Pick a branch.
For
cholinergic or adrenergic?
Okay, cholinergic.
Okay, cholinergic, okay. So what did we say cholinergic did?
Rest and digest, and that was the parasympathetic.
Yeah, it's parasympathetic, rest and digest.
Right.
And then rest and digest. Okay. So the thing that we want to ask ourselves are what are the hormones that work in here? There are 3 of them, and one of them we already know.
Cortisol.
Well, cortisol is the one that we're learning now. Aldosterone is one that we already know because we've used it already because it's something we talked about. But cortisol is definitely one of them. So what is cortisol's function?
Stress hormone.
It's a stress hormone, right? It gives us an appropriate response to stress, okay? Well, we talked about aldosterone. What does aldosterone do? Hold on. So
that affects your...
To clear your mind. Yeah. And I say aldosterone, forgetting this lecture. When you hear the word aldosterone, what do you think of? Kidneys, right? And so kidneys and aldosterone was part of what thing? What does it do? RAS, and so it started with renin, and it went through these steps, and it ended with what?
Increased blood pressure.
Thank you. And how did aldosterone increase blood pressure?
Sodium.
It told the body to hold on to sodium, and when it pulled on to sodium, it also pulled what with it?
Water.
And that drives blood pressure.
Blood pressure.
There it is. So sometimes when we see these crazy words, we're talking about endocrine and exocrine glands and stuff, and we're so stressed out about this that we forget stuff that we already know, and you clearly know that. I mean, you knew. See how well you knew that? Yeah. So again, don't be afraid to take a deep breath and say, let me clear my mind and just think about aldosterone separate of everything else, and see how the strongest behavior is what you learned last test.
Right.
Let that work in you, and that'll free your mind to think about the other hormones that you don't know as well. Because you do know this one. So don't stress out about this one. Stress out about these guys, okay? What's the last hormone that's in this that we haven't really talked about? Sex hormones, right? That's like testosterone, you know, estrogen, that progesterone, all those that deal with women stuff and guy stuff. That's what those are. So these guys here, sugar-based. These guys here, salt-based. These guys here are sex. So there was a thing in the notes said the 3 S's.
Salt, sugar, and sex. Remember that one? Hypoglycemia, hypoglycemia.
What's the Latin word for salt?
Latin?
Latin. Hyponatremia.
Oh.
Hypernatremia.
Okay.
So we're not going to spend so much time talking about these right now, but we know, okay, let's clear your mind for a second. In addition to aldosterone calling salt to make the salt be pulled into the blood to drive blood pressure out, think of your electrolyte lecture back on Unit 2. Clear your mind. Think about the what are the 4 major electrolytes in our body?
Sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium.
Calcium.
Yeah.
All but now just think about sodium. What was the major function? What major organ system did the sodium connect
Brain
with?
and nervous system.
Bam. Cholinergic, if there's errors and damage in here and it's out of control, could there be a possibility of hypo and hypernatremia? If this system's out of control, could hyper and hypoglycemia be a part of that?
Right.
Okay. If this system's out of control, could we have issues with our sex hormones?
Right.
Cholinergic, when there are errors in cholinergic system, they're going to be at this level. They're going to be down here. So let's talk about this. I have a tumor, polycythemia tumioia, whatever that's called. There's a tumor, right? If I have a tumor in my adrenal glands and it's affecting my sex hormones, if I have an elevation of cortisol and sex hormones in here, what's going to happen if I have elevated levels of sex hormones? If you give a kid who's 10 years old hormone shots of testosterone, a young man, what's going to happen to him? He's going to be a man faster.
Weird. Yeah.
He's going to hit puberty quicker because you're stimulating it. What happens if you shut that system off in a 12-year-old boy?
Might remain 12.
He's going to stay 12 for quite a bit longer, right? You're going to stunt that system. And the same is true with the young lady. If she doesn't get certain estrogens and stuff, she will not go into menstruation. She won't develop breasts. She won't, again, pubic hair won't develop. So without looking at the notes, elevated levels of sex hormones in men and women are going to do what? They're going to elevate those processes. So in a woman with elevated sex hormones, she's going to get bigger breasts. She's going to be bigger. Her hips are going to expand wider. She's going to be into childbearing quicker because that's what her sex hormones tells her to do. A dude, if he's got elevated stuff, what's he going to have? Acne. You know, they're going to be more pubic hair, taller.
Muscle growth.
He's going to have his voice drop quicker or deeper. Muscle development's going to be higher, right? What happens if these are low?
Yeah, complete opposite of them.
Complete opposite. So in a young lady with decreased sex hormones, she will not become a woman. So she's going to not develop pubic hair. Same in a young man. He will not develop axillary and pubic hair associated with adulthood. Okay? They're not going to grow as tall. A young man's going to keep his muscle size and his stature development lower. And a young woman, her hips will stay lower and she won't develop breasts because she just can't do it. That was really hard to go over that. We didn't need to go over the notes. Okay? That's hyper and hypo. Cortisol, same thing. It's a sugar. It's a glucocorticoid. So we're going to be in hyperglycemia, hypoglycemia. What are those terms? What are those terms associated with?
As far as what diseases or diabetes.
There we go.
Right.
There's a relationship between glucocorticosteroids or cortisol and the end state diabetes. So here's a crazy thing. Okay, here's a crazy thing. So review again. I'm in hyponatremia, hypernatremia. What are the normal ranges in testing for blood for salt should we be at?
135 to 145.
Bam. Blood glucose levels. What are our normal blood glucose ranges?
No, so good at
70 like to 120, 110.
Okay.
130 is the high end, right? The 70 number on the bottom is most important because we've learned in this class, hypo of anything is always worse. So we're more interested in that, okay? We get people at 400 glucose.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, they can be, sometimes they flip out and go into coma and stuff, but it's a lot less common and we can do something about that. They're in low blood sugar and they go lower. It's extremely difficult for us to intervene and stop it. And that's just because of what it is, okay? So that's your adrenosides. Here are the 3 hormones, and here's what they do. Okay, and check this out. This is calming the system, rest and digest, right? We're calming the system. What if we want to go fight? What are we going to have going on? We're going to be in our adrenergic system, right? Okay, when you see how well these go together and how if you learn one, the other one just fills itself in. It's awesome. It's so cool because the big smile on your face tells me that you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like clicking on
this is amazing. Oh my God. Like, yeah. Okay, that's why I love. This is for me as your study partners with you guys. Everybody asks me, why are you crazy doing study groups all the time? Because I get enjoyment because I learn.
Yeah.
And I get to see that look in your face like, oh my gosh, bring the test on. Oh my gosh, bring the quiz on because you understand it now. And
how are you doing in the class?
I get an A, but barely.
Yeah.
It fluctuates. My test average is like 80%, and my quiz average is like 108%, and that's why I'm doing so well. It's like my quiz. I'm getting extra credit on the quiz and it's driving my test scores up. But overall,
yeah, I've been trying to study on my own, and I don't know, the test questions show up, and I just lose my mind.
Well, and one of the things I'm really good at is I'm really good at concept, like this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm not so good at digging into the detailed Cushing's and the 3 signs and symptoms, and that's why I had to push myself. So other students in our study group, they pushed me on that. So we bring our strengths and our weaknesses in.
Yeah, I understand like the basics too, but when you start throwing signs and symptoms, I get it all.
Well, and I'm trying to build the signs and symptoms now, as in we don't need to memorize the signs and symptoms. We already know them all.
You can learn the system. Yeah.
We know what the system's doing, and we know what the electrolytes are doing. We know what the blood's doing. We know what the kidneys are doing. Now we know. So again, when you think ahead, the next system we got to cover is neurology. Well, one of these systems, neurology. Catecholamines is something we talked about just in this lecture, and they're nerve synapse hormones. We're talking about them right now, so it should, you know what I'm saying? It's not that now. What I'm saying is it takes the stress level down. It's not as scary. Where there have been some lectures, you're sitting there going, right? You're like, holy crap, I don't know anything that's going on, and you're like, did I take anatomy? Did I take physiology? But now doing this, you're like, wait a minute, I have seen this before. It's coming together. And the knowledge and the hard work that you've paid is now paying off, as opposed to, I feel like a dum-dum. What am I doing in here? Okay, let's talk about adrenergic, okay? Adrenergic, what are the 3 words that won't adrenergic?
Fight or flight and sympathetic.
So fight or flight and sympathetic. And those are synonymous, right? They're all the same. So I can use any one of them, okay? Bam. They're all, and the same is true with cholinergic. Okay. Well, we know cholinergic is relaxing, right? We're dealing with salt and we're dealing with sugars and we're dealing with sex hormones, right? And they are designed to relax, to eat, to digest things, okay? So if that's the case, what are the, do you know the hormones that are in this system? There's 3 of them.
Epinephrine, norepinephrine.
Dopamine. Okay, these 2 go together. This one's the weirdo. You're gonna spend the majority of your time, be worried about this one, okay? And here's why. Okay, so what does this system do? There was a little mnemonic in the notes that talked about can't.
Oh, can't see, can speak, spit.
Spit, can't.
Pee, and can't shit. Right?
So this system is designed to do one thing. Constrict.
Okay.
And the reason it's constricting is because what it's doing is it's constricting these organs in here that we just talked about. Are we worried about sex hormones and growing bigger if we're in a gunfight? No, not really. So it shuts that off. Right. Are we worried about digesting food and calling for insulin and cortisol?
Right.
Not right now. We're not. Are we worried about? The salt levels in our blood? We can be if we need energy, and that can help with that, right? Can drive blood pressure up. So we'll talk about it. Okay, so the 4 receptor types. You remember what the 4 receptor types are?
No, I need to go over those.
I got you.
Cool.
Okay, Let me ask you a question. Have you seen A and B before in the previous lecture? A and B something?
Probably.
ABC drugs of hypertension, alpha blockers, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, and diuretics.
Gotcha. Alpha, beta.
We just talked about calcium.
Mm-hmm.
What system in this that we talked about? Calcium. Which system is it? Which gland is it? That's calcium channel. It's a calcium gland.
Oh, we had the kidneys. No, not gland.
The gland. It's one of these six.
Right, that was the thyroid.
Not thyroid, parathyroid. So calcium channel blockers may have something to do with parathyroid. Calcium channel blockers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen this before. Diuretics do what? ADH and aldosterone.
Kidneys. Urine output.
That's going to do something with urine.
Right.
Nothing new there.
Right. It's making connections.
Right. I'm connecting this previous brain map to the stuff we're doing now. Okay, A1. A1 constrict some stuff. Stomach, GI, right? GI, and then kidneys.
Are these classes of?
These are the receptors. These are the
Okay.
receptors, okay?
Gotcha.
A1 constricts at these places. If I can't see, can't spit, can't pee, can't poop, these are the organs that are constricted.
Right.
Blood is being constricted out of these to send blood here, here, and here,
Right.
and here, so I can fight.
Okay, fight or flight.
Yep, so it's constricting these guys because we're not interested in GI right now. We're not interested in kidney function. We're not interested in eating. We don't need to eat, so the salivary glands don't need to be working. And our eyes is a misnomer. We need pupil dilation, but we constrict the iris muscles to be able to get that to work. They're counter. So as the irises constrict, the muscles around the eye constrict, it opens up the pupils. It dilates the pupils.
Right.
So here, just say irises constrict, and then the pupils dilate. Okay, so that's what this guy does. Okay, which makes sense because our cholinergic system had two different, they had muscarinic, we're gonna go back to the cholinergic system in a minute. The two receptor sites, so A1, A2, B1, and B2 are right here. These are the receptor sites for adrenergic. In cholinergic, there's two, nicotinic and muscarinic. Nicotinic has to do with muscle relaxing, and muscarinic has to do with gland relaxing. So muscarinic is going to tell us, hey, secrete salivary glands and tell the GI system to start to produce bile, and tell the stomach to start to churn again and produce acid and juices. The nicotinic system is going to say, hey, listen, tell these guys to relax, tell these guys to relax, tell these guys to relax, and tell these guys to start moving poop and stuff through the start to peristalsis again.
Right.
Start to work again. Those smooth muscles start working again.
Rest and digest.
So the counter, so on this, so if I say A1, A2, B1, and B2, what are the countering cholinergic receptors that shut these ones off? There's two of them, nicotinic and muscarinic. So if I say muscarinic and nicotinic and say, what are the adrenergic receptors that work and start fight or flight that turn these ones off?
Got A1, A2, B1, B2.
So that's the relationship, right? Those are the two bookends. So cholinergic receptors are dopamine or muscarinic and nicotinic, and on the adrenergic side, it's A1, A2, B2, B1, B2, and those two counter each other. A1 does something, and there's a corresponding cholinergic receptor that tells the body, shut that one off and go back to a more relaxed digesting condition. And when the bear runs out of the trees and you're out camping, A1 kicks in and says, shut cholinergic, shut muscarinic, and nicotinic off, and give me all the blood so I can do this stuff to run away from the bear or fight the bear. See, now it doesn't seem so daunting again. Now you know A1, these guys counter muscarinic and nicotinic, and these guys counter those. That depending on what the body needs at the time, one is being shut off and one is being turned on.
Right.
Dude, Doesn't that just feel good? That feels so good. Okay, so what does A2 do?
I'm not familiar with any of these.
I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy. This guy controls this guy. This guy's the sheriff for A1.
Okay.
For A1. So if this system got out of control, it was unchecked, what would it do to these guys? It would constrict and cut off all blood supply to GI and kidneys. Well, how long will the kidneys work how long will they go without blood before they die? 20 to 30 minutes. And this is so important. There's another hormone that keeps blood going to the kidneys. Remember that special one?
Mm-hmm.
Dopamine. This system and this hormone both tell this system not constrict that off, to let blood still get to the kidneys. And there's 2 reasons why we'll go over them. But that is so important to keep those not going without blood, that the sheriff tells A1, dude, don't kill the kidneys. And dopamine specifically says, keep those blood vessels open. Kidneys need blood. Okay, so those 2 work together to tell this guy, don't go crazy, because this guy will go nuts. Right? This guy's, hey, I gotta live. And this guy doesn't care that the kidneys are dying to outrun the bear. So this guy says, hey man, the kidneys are important, we don't need to lose those. So A2 does what? It's the sheriff of A1. It just says, hey, I'm sheriff of A1. Okay, B1 equals one beat, B1, or 1 heart. So B1 is specifically at the heart, and it's going to do this. Oh shit! Sorry, thanks.
All right, what does it say?
Blood pressure,
Okay.
heart rate, contractility.
Okay.
Okay, so B1 receptors, when they're activated, do what? Drive up blood pressure, drive up heart rate, and this last one says contractility.
Oh, hard.
So remember, we had 2 systems in the heart. We had 2 systems in the heart. So when the heart muscle was overfilled and it expanded too much, right? With too much pressure on it, it had a system to not get us to do this. Here's your ventricle. Have you remember this guy?
AMP.
Those tell, when those are under too much pressure, AMP and BMP are released to tell the body to do what? Stop putting me under so much pressure. I'm not comfortable with this. Don't do that. B1 shuts that system off and says, we're being chased by a bear right now.
Contract you need.
Dude, we want max contraction, and you're going to be under some stress for a while. You're going to be under some stress. So B1 shuts those off for a time, right? And hey, guess what? There's a review for you. There's another review, right? So there's another connection to Unit 5. Are you cool with me doing all these connections, drawing you back to, okay.
Yeah, talking.
This is awesome because you start to see, hey, wait a minute, I know something about this.
Right.
And it's awesome, okay? So Unit 5, okay. So that's that guy. So what's B2 do? Well, if there's 1 heart, there are
2 lungs.
4 lungs. Okay, I'm gonna do something down here. Okay. Now check this out. This is another review that I think is really helpful to see this. Okay. In a previous section, we talked about perfusion and ventilation, and they were in balance. We were trying to keep those in balance.
Mm-hmm.
Perfusion,
going up.
ventilation. Lungs is ventilation, and this is perfusion. This is blood, right? So in a fight or flight situation, I'm telling the body to increase blood pressure, increase heart rate. What do I want to do down here if I'm doing that?
You're gonna increase that too.
I want to drive that up. Now, swipe your mind for a second. If perfusion, thank you. Perfusion is going up. Why is that going up? Under that lecture, we talked about vasoconstriction.
Mm-hmm.
And vasoconstriction allowed this to go up. If vasoconstriction is happening over here, in order for ventilations, which is now dropping, right? When this one's going up, ventilations are going down. But to keep this in balance, we want to be going up.
Bronchodilation too.
There you go. And that's what this is doing. It's bronchodilating the blood vessels around the lungs to increase O2 uptake. So perfusion with vasoconstriction can keep the tissues fully oxygenated. And that's our perfusion ventilation balance or ventilation cycle. And that's what B1 and B2 are doing. And that's those guys. Now, we talked about dopamine. And dopamine specifically is working at the kidneys. Okay, in order for blood pressure to go up, what's the relationship between the kidneys and blood pressure being driven up? What does the kidneys do to help that happen?
To blood pressure?
Yeah, to drive blood pressure up, the kidneys can play games with that.
Well, we got sodium retention.
Sodium retention, and how does that happen?
Water to the blood vessel, increasing volume, increasing pressure.
But what is the system that does that in the kidneys?
RAS? Race?
The RAS system. And guess what? Really funny thing. Guess what? Guess what organ starts it?
Yeah.
And guess what organ ends it? The kidneys start it, and the adrenal cortex secretes aldosterone. So it's really the kidneys that start and end it. So if we cut off blood supply to the kidneys, it can't release renin, and it certainly isn't going to be producing aldosterone. So dopamine is also telling these guys we have to keep the RAS system functioning. That means the kidneys have to have blood. That's the second reason. The first reason is the kidneys die in 20 to 30 minutes, right, without blood. The second reason is the kidneys play a direct relationship to B1, because that RAS system is going to drive the blood pressure up. Without blood, the kidneys cannot do that job. And so this system, this particular function would be cut off, and all that we'd have left to do to get our energy up would be heart rate and contractility. And as we know, with stroke volume, blood pressure, loaded volume of pressure has a huge impact on stroke volume and amount of blood that we can push per minute. Okay, so there you go. That's it. That's A1, B2. Okay, and that's what dopamine does. So dopamine receptors specifically act at the kidneys to keep the RAS system open to allow the blood pressure to be driven up. Without it, blood pressure would not respond.
Right.
So guess what we're gonna do? Guess what you get to do?
I get to do.
You get to come up here and recreate whatever system you want. Just do it. And I don't care if you remember it all. Just create as much of it as you can from memory.
Okay.
And I will shut up and I'll let you do everything. And when you say I'm done, then we'll talk about it again. What we'll really do is when you say you're done, we'll get the notes out and we'll fill in the blanks. That way you can fill it. You can work through it.
Cool.
Good job. You actually know quite a bit of this already.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Like,
I know, I just don't make the connections.
well, and that's what I've been really pushing with the team for me, because I wasn't doing this either. I was like always at stress level 10. I was at DEFCON 5 all the time for quizzes and exams. Like I can never do it. Now it's taking the stress level down for me because I'm like, I know all this.
Because what ends up happening is I end up memorizing anatomy and physiology.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting a patho part.
Which really, at the end of the day, the previous work that you've done in patho and physiology and anatomy is going to pay off here. And now it's time to make the connection and let it pay off. All right, be my guest, sir. Pick a system. I don't care. And we'll walk
You give me a
through it.
system. How about that?
Okay, so go through adrenergic.
Adrenergic, which was synonymous with fight or flight, and also sympathetic, right?
You got it.
And we got our.
So let's talk specifically, after you identify those words, then talk about what are the hormones that function in that system. What are the three hormones that function in adrenergic?
Right, so we got epinephrine,
Epi,
norepi,
dopamine. Yeah, and what's great about this is we don't really have to know. The only one of those hormones that we really kind of have to know where it's functioning at is where?
Dopamine.
It's dopamine, really. Epi and norepi, we know they're functioning in alpha and beta sites, and just we could look it up and figure it out. But for this exam, for what we need to know, we don't need to know all that yet.
All right, so the target for this is going to be kidneys.
Yep, it's kidneys. Specifically, kidneys what? It's the vasculature leading in and out of there. It's keeping the blood supply to the kidneys open. That's really what it's doing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, I'm breaking my own rule. I'm breaking my own rule, James, sorry.
That's good.
Okay, keep going. You're doing awesome.
Stuff anyway.
So now that you know the hormones, what are the receptor sites?
Right, so that's where we got our A1.
Yep, that's A1, A2, B1, B2. And your handwriting's way better than mine, by the way.
B2. Right off the top of my head, I know this is going to be a sheriff.
And the sheriff of what?
Sheriff of A1.
Yep, he's A1. He's telling everyone, hey man, don't go crazy.
Right. So, sheriff of A1 to keep the kidneys supplied with blood, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what he's doing. He's saying, hey dude, don't kill the kidneys. Keep the kidneys alive.
Keep blood and kidneys. 4 kidneys.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this here is going to be your eyes, right?
Yep. Can't see, can't spit, can't pee, can't poop.
Eyes. Mouth. GI.
Yep, GI. And renal, kidneys.
Kidney. Okay. B1. B2. B1's going to be 1 heart.
Yep, 1 heart, one beat, yep.
So we got 1 heart. Draw.
Be my guess. That's totally okay.
Got the 1 heart, right?
Yep.
So this is increasing your blood pressure.
Yep.
And also increasing contractility.
Yep, contractility.
But before that, we also have.
So pressure is the amount of power, but the rate of contraction is called what? Heart rate.
Heart rate, right?
Yep.
Increasing heart rate. And contractility.
There you go. And specifically contractility, what system are we shutting off?
AMP and BMP.
There you go.
Right?
That's it.
So it's going to be.
Just a little side note, right?
Closing AMP.
Yep, it's just shutting that off for a while, saying, hey, you know what, this is okay.
AMP, right?
Perfect.
And then over here, B2, we got the lungs. Lungs look like. Take that for lungs.
Yeah, that's lungs, hey, lungs.
So we're also going to be throwing off balance the perfusion and there's our perfusion here.
Yep.
So there's our ventilation.
Yep.
Ventilation is going to be
The pipes leading into the lungs are called what?
bronchodilation.
Yep, there you go.
We're going to have bronchodilation.
We're going to open up those passages into the lungs.
Right, to increase O2.
Yep, and then that O2 is going to be taken up by what? To drive up blood pressure and heart rate, the heart system has contracted or vasoconstricted the blood vessels.
Right.
But now we've got more,
Pressure.
but that's going to drive the pressure and the heart rate up. But now we've got O2, heavy amounts of O2 coming on the ventilation side, and it's going to keep our perfusion ventilation cycle in balance.
Right. You want to say something on this?
No, that's it. That's what it does. It just dilates the bronchioles, and it could potentially also do what? Increase tachypnea, increase the actual breathing speed.
Okay.
So normally we're breathing at like what, 40 to 60, say 70 like breaths per minute, right? We could get up to 110, 120 when we're in fight or flight, right? So it's going to just drive up ventilations.
Okay.
And that's going to also help with the ventilation perfusion cycle because as bronchodilation happens, we're actually breathing faster and deeper anyway. And that's going to keep the O2 level quite high for the perfusion system to take that blood out to the muscles that's going to be the running or the fighting.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, so cholinergic. Now that you got adrenergic up there, let's do cholinergic.
Okay,
so let's just start just like we did before. Yeah, you can do it right there. You can sit down. There's a chair. If you need to sit down, it'll make it a little easier for you.
Okay. CH or CO?
It's like CHOLINGERC something. I figure if they're going to give it to me, they'll spell it for me on the test. they'll spell it for me. It's not an anatomy where I have to spell everything right? If this is an anatomy, we'd be practicing how to spell these.
What'd you have for anatomy?
I had Berrickman,
Okay.
Nancy Berrickman, and I had Jeff as the lab instructor.
At Karen, so we have to remember how to spell it.
Dude, well, no, I think we had to remember how to spell everything too
Oh,
as
did you?
well. Yeah,
Okay.
we did. Dude, Karen's a ball bust right here. Okay.
All right, so we got our rest of the digest here. R&D, and we got parasympathetic opposite of that.
Okay, so we had three major hormones at the top. So how many do we have in cholinergic? We have three again. So one is glucose based, one is salt based, and one is sex based.
Okay. Just write it right here, say salt.
Yep. So that would be yeah. So glucocorticoid, what's salt? Damn it, I can't remember the salt based one. Yeah, no, it's got a name. They got a stupid name. Where's the whole? Let me make it up. Damn it. I can't remember this. It's aldosterone is the name of the stupid hormone, but I can't remember it right now. I can't remember what. Okay, hold on. Here it is. Mineral corticoid is aldosterone. That's salt, and then androgens are our sex hormones. Sorry, I should have. I should look at that before. Again, if I have to remember that, I'm hoping the stupid test question will give it to me. Mineral corticoid, glucocorticoid, and androgen is sex.
Glucocorticoid?
Yeah, glucocorticoid's sugar.
Okay, you consider cortisol or?
That is cortisol. So just like androgen, adrenergic, like fight or flight and sympathetic are synonymous, you can say glucocorticoid or cholesterol or cortisol. They're synonymous with each other, right? If I say glucocorticoid, I'm saying cortisol, and it's sugar based, right? And then if I say mineral corticoid, I mean aldosterone, which is salt based. And then sex hormones are aldosterone or androgens. Okay, so there you go. So what are the receptors called in this system? There's two of them.
Nicotinic.
Nicotinic and it sounds like muscarinic, right? And what do they do? Which ones do what?
Okay. So
Nicotinic act on what thing?
So nicotinic is going to act to reverse our A1, right?
And A1 is specifically antagonizing what?
It's constricting.
It's constricting. So how does the body constrict anything? What organ system does constriction?
What, vascular or?
Muscular. Even our vasculature doesn't constrict itself. It's muscles.
Right.
It's smooth muscle that does that, right? So nicotinic response, it does what? It relaxes or dilates muscles.
To allow blood back.
Yep, to allow blood back in those. Yep. So that's what nicotinic does. Okay. Well, then what does muscarinic do?
The muscarinic, you got it on.
So how do I tell my GI system it's time to digest food? That's not muscle action that's doing that. It's enzyme and hormone action.
Okay, so that's
glands. That's gland system. So that's what those two. That's what the two receptors are and what they do. So go ahead and write those up there because that's going to be important.
I'm not sure to put them.
Just put them below. Just put them below. Just directly below all of them because just like A1, A2, B1, B2 don't really have the different hormones to them. These are the same way. So muscarinic does what?
Muscarinic is going to affect.
Activates glands. Tells the gland it's time to eat. It says it's time to not be hibernating. It's time to eat something.
Let's say digest, right?
Yeah, for anything digestive based. So everything from the mouth to the butt and the renal system, it's going to activate those guys to make them do their jobs for digestion.
We're going to digest part of this.
Yep, and then now we've got the rest part.
Which is going to be the cholinergic? No.
I'm smoking cigarettes, and the major addictive component is what?
Nicotinic.
Nicotinic. There you go. I didn't give it to you, but I gave you a hint. And that's going to do what? That's going to act on what? That's going to be the resting part on muscle. It's going to be muscle relaxer.
Relax. It'll be the rest part.
Okay, so the last piece of this that we haven't really talked about, but it'll be very, very easy. If I tell you that you have an anti-adrenergic drug, which system does it support?
Which system does it support?
It supports. It's going to act like that system. Anti-adrenergic is going to support which system?
This system right here.
It's going to act like cholinergic, right? Or it's going to block fight or flight response.
Right.
Okay. If I say anticholinergic drugs, they're going to support what system? Adrenergic. They're going to make that system stronger, and they're going to counter the cholinergic system. That's it, man. Okay. The last thing in this that we got to go over is pheochromocytoma. Well, toma means tumor.
Right.
So a tumor on the adrenal medulla that secretes excessive catecholamines, which are cortisol. So cortisol is now elevated.
Right.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Catecholamines are epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine. Those are in our adrenergic system. Excuse me. So catecholamines are the epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine. If those are elevated, okay, if those three are elevated, what are we going to have happening? What do those do already? Look what they do below on the receptor sites. Yeah.
Right.
So if I have elevated levels of epi and norepinephrine, what's going to continue to happen to my blood pressure and heart rate?
Going to keep increasing.
They're going to keep going up because those are getting secreted, right? Okay. So what else are we going to have? We're going to have tachycardia, hypertension, hyperglycemia, and hypermetabolism. Our metabolism is going to be elevated, and we're going to receive weight loss.
Wait, hang on. How's the metabolism elevated if we're in the adrenergic?
Well, okay, so if metabolism means calling for energy.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
We're calling for energy because we
right.
need to keep those systems going harder and harder than they were going before. That's hypermetabolism, and then hyperglycemia because we need more sugar to keep those going. That's why we're calling for those. Okay. So phylochromocytoma is a tumor on the adrenal glands that causes excessive catecholamines, epi, norepi, and dopamine. And the resulting signs and symptoms are hypertension, tachycardia, hyperglycemia, hypermetabolism, and then ultimate weight loss. If it happens long enough, it will cause weight loss because these systems are elevated. And you'll just die. Eventually, this will probably just kill you because your heart will just give out. Okay, that's that, dude. Okay. So you got through that. Okay, let's go through pancreas really quick. Good job.
You gonna go through that?
Yeah, we can go through. We'll just go through together. I'll leave you up there, okay? Okay, so erase all this for a minute. Get this down, and we'll go through the pancreas, okay? What if we said the pancreas did?
Endocrine and exocrine.
It has endocrine and exocrine function, correct?
Digestive enzymes.
It does digestive enzymes, and what else does it do?
We also have sugar control with.
How does it do sugar control?
With. I just forgot the word.
Insulin, and it also does insulin, and it does glucose through like glycogen. Has that chemical called glycogen. Okay, so you got it. So specifically in this system, we're not so much worried about the digestion, are we? Because we talked about digestion in the last section, right? So we can kind of put bile salts and stuff away for this part,
right?
Okay, but we're talking about insulin and glycogen, right? Specifically, what do those do?
Well, this is going to be activate sugar storage.
Yep.
Right.
That's sugar storage.
Right, and it's going to activate sugar.
A call for sugar, right? We're going to call for it when we need it. Okay. Well, do you know what cells produce insulin? What kind of cells produce insulin?
Is it which cells of the pancreas?
Yeah, there's a specific cell that does that.
Is it the alpha?
That's beta cells, and glycogen is
alpha
cells. Perfect.
Right.
Perfect. Yep, you got it. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to spend the majority of the time talking about insulin. Why would we talk about insulin more? Why is insulin the one that we're going to talk about the most here? What's the next big disease we're going to talk about?
Diabetes.
We're talking about insulin and glycogen and glucose. We're talking about diabetes, right? And why do we spend more time talking about insulin and diabetes than we do glycogen? Because it's a disruption of the insulin system that causes diabetes. It's not a disruption of the glycogen system. So now we're going to drill down into insulin, okay? So there are two types of diabetes, right? What are the two big types of diabetes?
Got the type 1 and type 2.
So what's going on in type 1?
Type 1 is the genetic, right?
It's an autoimmune, right?
Autoimmune,
or genetic, or even genetics can cause it. But what's happening?
It's where there is no insulin production.
Yeah, insulin's being disrupted because those cells are what? They're being destroyed. The body's own immune system is killing them. Okay, so let's put type 1 down there. Put type 1 diabetes, and let's talk about it.
Type 1, okay.
Okay, so type 1 is what? Specifically, what is it? It's just destruction of the beta cells.
Right.
And it's removing insulin from the system because it can't produce it.
B cell destruction, no insulin.
Yeah, there's no insulin. Yep, no insulin there. And so the body can't store glucose in the cells because there's no insulin to do it.
Right.
So what's a major sign and symptom of that? How would we know somebody's got that going on?
So they end up having
Go downstream. They're gonna have glucose in their urine, right? Whatever. Yeah, it's gonna be glucose in the urine, right? That's the big giveaway. That's what diabetes mellitus actually stands for, right? Sweet urine, or like a lot of urine, and it has a sweet taste.
Right. I don't know if I found that out. Okay.
Okay, so that's that one. So what about type 2 then?
We've got type 2 here.
What's happening this way? So in
type 2.
in type 1, we're talking about the producer, right? In type 2, what are we now talking about? We're talking about the end user. We're talking about the consumer.
You can't reuptake.
Yeah, consumer doesn't want it. Consumer can't take it. They've lost. The market doesn't want to buy glucose.
Right. So cells can't take up
glucose. Yep.
Right. So the alpha cells.
So what's present in type 2 diabetes? Insulin and glucose are both going to be present in type 2 diabetes. But what's happening?
The insulin.
The insulin and glucose are both there, but the cells won't take it up. The cells will not take it up, and so that's type. So it's insulin resistance, is what the term we're looking for.
Okay. So no uptake, right?
Yep. Insulin resistance.
No glucose uptake.
Oh, that's what FSB stands for. Dang it.
What's that?
Oh, I was just looking at the stupid notes for a second. I couldn't figure out what FSB, and FSB stands for fasting blood sugar level. FSB, the acronym. I was for like 4 days. I've been like, what's FSB?
And where should that be at?
It's the test for this type 1, type 2 diabetes. It's FSB. So you give them.
Is there a range for that?
Yeah. Well, it's glucose levels are 70 to 130, and fasting blood glucose levels, it shouldn't move outside that range.
Okay.
When they do
it shouldn't go below 70.
It shouldn't go below 70. It shouldn't go above 130.
Okay.
But when you do it and it does, this is what's going on.
Right.
It's
this.
Yeah.
Situation's going on.
Okay.
Great.
That's kind of there's a little bit more with this, but I'm gonna let you look over it. Like it's more detailed, right? Just inlets and the 3 signs and symptoms of type 1 are polyuria, polydysbia, polyphagia, and then like the risk factors. I'll let you look those over, but this is the general stuff, right? And then if you want, we're gonna meet tomorrow again. We're gonna do it online. Like I've been doing it online.
How do you do it online?
It's just Google Hangouts. I just send out invitations, and then I have it, and it lets me bring up a Blackboard, and I have slides that I just show. We'll go through this. Yeah, I got to build it though still, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay. Let's talk about Addison's and Cushing's disease. Did we talk about that yet?
Mentioned it.
Okay, so Addison's and Cushing's disease specifically have to do with the adrenal, right? The adrenal system, specifically with cortisol levels. So in Addison's disease, cortisol levels are low, and in Cushing's disease, they're high.
Too much because you're Cushing.
Yeah. So remember what we talked about. Remember hyponatremia, hypoglycemia, and then hypokalemia, which is your potassium levels. Okay, so in Addison's disease, we have a decreased cortisol level, which is going to give us hyponatremia, low salt, hypoglycemia, low sugar, and by definition, because the sodium-potassium pump, if sodium is low, what does potassium have to be?
The opposite.
High. So if Cushing's disease is elevated levels, I'm going to have hypernatremia, hyperglycemia, and then what is potassium going to be?
Hyper.
It's going to be hypo because like Cushing's sodium's high, so that means potassium has to be low, and that's what's going on. Okay, so without looking at these really quick, so I have low salt levels in Addison's disease. What does that look like with that electrolyte lecture? If I have low sugar, what does that look like? What are the normal values for sodium in the body? What's normal?
135 to 145.
Okay, so if I have decreased levels, what system does the sodium specifically play on?
Brain and nerve.
Yeah, central nervous system, right? So this is the great thing about the central nervous system. If I have too much or too little, the signs and symptoms are the same. seizures, LOC change,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
I'm gonna throw up.
Mhm.
That's awesome about the sodium system, but that's the big thing.
Okay.
Okay, the weird one is low sodium is gonna give me diarrhea, high sodium is gonna give me constipation. That's the only difference.
Okay.
Okay, and then also, what else does sodium do in the body? At the kidney, sodiums do what?
Retain water.
Retain water. So if I have low sodium levels, what am I gonna have?
Edema.
I'm gonna, well, yeah,
No.
I'm
That's
gonna
with you.
I'm gonna be dehydrated, or I'm gonna be pissing it out, pissing water out. If I have low sodium levels, I'm releasing water.
Okay.
If I have high sodium levels, I'm gonna be holding
Retaining
onto
it.
water.
Gotcha.
So if I have low sodium levels, what's my blood pressure gonna be like?
Low sodium level. It's gonna be low.
Low blood pressure. High sodium level,
It's gonna be
high blood pressure. You didn't have to look at Addison's disease. Okay, so kalemia or potassium, what system does the potassium play on?
Potassium.
Sodium, potassium, heart. So if I have, in Addison's, I have low sodium, I have high potassium. So what can I expect my heart rate to do?
Potassium is excitatory.
It's going to drive it up, right? It's going to drive my blood pressure up. Okay, that's what hyperkalemia is going to do. Okay, now that we've done that, okay, let's talk about the other side. So now I've got Cushing's. Cushing's elevated levels of sodium and reduced levels of potassium. So what am I going to have? Signs and symptoms of Cushing's for the sodium is going to be what? Kukutan, because that's going to be the same for both of them, because it's out of normal.
Right.
But now I have fluid retention, high blood pressure. Okay, but what's potassium going to do? I have low potassium now.
Decrease your heart rate.
Yep, decrease my heart rate, and so I got chances of dysrhythmias and reduced cardiac function because of that. But on the other hand, my sodium's up, it's driving my blood pressure up. So they're countering each other.
Balance,
yeah, they're a bit of a balance there because one's going up as the other one's going down.
Right.
Other end, but it's just good to know, right? Those are the things that you're going to see. And those are the things we discriminate, right? Blood pressure's high, heart rate's low, they're in Cushing's. They've got it's going to be hyper levels of cortisol, elevated levels of cortisol. On the other end, high blood pressure, low heart rate, that's Addison's. Because, yeah, low potassium, low sodium, high potassium, higher heart rate, lower pressure because sodium's being released from the system, driving the blood pressure down. And then let's look at this really quick. So then also, Addison's also had a sex function, right? So decreased libido. Cortisol is low, that means sex hormones are low. So decreased loss of pubic and axillary hair. And then this brown-colored skin pigment deal, okay? Then on this other side, we got hysteremia, acne and striations, easy bruising, and increased masculinity among females. So males respond to Cushing's a little bit better than women do.
Right.
Okay, and then here are the diagnostic tests. So fasting blood sugar is going to be decreased in Addison's, and fasting blood sugar is increased. Well, that makes sense because we're in hyperglycemia, hypoglycemia. So it makes sense that those are decreased and increased. Okay. Plasma cortisol levels are decreased. Well, of course they're decreased. That's the definition of it. Okay. Serum sodium is increased. Serum potassium is decreased, and we know that because of hyponatremia, hyperkalemia. That's what we're
spend more
doing.
time on that and just
no. But now that you understand what cortisol does, S sugar, S salt, S sex. And the only reason kalemia is in there is because of the potassium sodium pump. Those go together because they're countering. If one's high, the other one has to be low. Okay, sugar, salt, sex. Decreased S's, elevated S's, and then kalemia just is opposite of sugar or salt. Excuse me. That's it. That's Cushing's and Addison's. Okay. I'm hitting all the big crazy words because those are Graves and Hashimoto's. Graves means elevated thyroid or elevated metabolism. Hashimoto's means lower metabolism. Higher blood pressure, lower weight. Lower blood pressure, gaining weight. Those are the general ones, and there's more going on with these. But this is where it's at. So slow down, speed up. Graves, Cushing. So if I say hypothyroidism, what am I talking about? Hashimoto's. Okay. Right. If I say weight gain, blood pressure's down, breast pressure's down. If I say Addison's, what am I saying?
Talking about Graves.
Well, no, Addison's disease.
Addison's disease. You're now talking about salt, sugar, and sex should be.
Is cortisol elevated or decreased?
It's decreased.
Decreased. So I've got decreased salt, sugar, and sex,
Right.
and potassium is going to be what?
Increased.
Elevated.
Opposite.
So what's the other disease? For Addison's, what's the counter disease to Addison's?
Cushing's.
And what's going to be happening there? Elevated.
Opposite.
Elevated sugar, sex, and salt, and potassium is
Decreased
going to be
potassium.
potassium. Okay, then I've got Graves. What's Graves?
Graves is going to be your hyperthyroidism, right? Increased metabolism and decreased weight.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Okay. Now there's one last bit. Crazy funny word. Phytochromocytoma affecting the adrenal medulla. What's happening? The tumor is doing what?
Is it crowding out or is it increasing?
It's increasing something. What ends up? What hormones did it increase? Adrenergic or cholinergic? Is it increasing adrenergic or cholinergic hormones?
I'm not sure.
Adrenergic, epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine. It's increasing those. So what's it going to drive up?
Your adrenergic is going to be your fight or flight, right? So it's going to be fight or flight, going to have increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, tachypnea.
Increased respirations, right?
Right.
Okay, and then we're going to recruit more metabolism to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is going to do.
And you're going to end up with decreased weight.
Get tachycardia, tachypnea,
Right.
hypermetabolism,
Mm-hmm.
hyperglycemia. Those are the hypers that it talked about,
Okay.
elevated. And it just says, oh, it's an English question. So you probably want to know that.
Probably should, huh?
Yeah. You good?
Yeah.
Good review for tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sweet.
We'll call it quits.
Thanks, man.
I'm getting a little tired, and you already were here, so you've been studying.
I've been here since 3 o'clock.
What